Welcome. This is Mary Magnuson, and on behalf of the Blandin Foundation, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar on creative spaces, creative places. This is one in a series of monthly webinars we're offering for our Blandin broadband communities and open it to anyone with an interest in using technology to improve communities. Before we begin, I'll point to the chat box at the bottom of your screen here. To interact with us at any time during today's webinar, you can simply type your question or comment in the chat box. And now let's get started. Again, my name is Mary Magnuson. I work here at Blandin Foundation, and I administer the Blandin Community Broadband Program. Joining me today is Ann Tracy of Tracy Information Systems, who I'm sure many of you know or have at least heard of. Ann has been working with the Blandin Broadband Initiative for a number of years. Most notably, she authors the Blandin on Broadband blog. Ann will introduce our guest speakers today. They are Matthew Marcus and possibly Aaron Deacon, who will be talking about Kansas City Startup Village. We also have Fred Underwood, and we'll be talking about the Duluth makerspace. And finally, Carla Leiden from the East Central Regional Library. Take it away, Ann. Ann, are you there? Ann, if you're there, we can't hear you. All right. Matthew, I know you were going first. Did you want to just say a little something about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, so Matthew Marcus, entrepreneur and community builder here in Kansas City. One of the efforts that I am helping to lead the charge with is the Kansas City Startup Village, which I'm excited to tell you all about today. As far as Kansas City, a lot of great things happening in the city. It's the startup and entrepreneur ecosystem is certainly electrifying, to say the least. A number of awesome initiatives happening, and the Kansas City Startup Village is just one of many. And I'm happy to continue on with the village if you want, or
why don't you continue until we get Ann back? I'm not really sure what happened to her.
Okay, happily.
I think that'll be.
Yeah, I'll just pause my presentation if Ann jumps in, and we'll let her do her part. So does that sound good?
Yeah, you sound
okay,
fine. Thank you.
Great. So yeah, the Kansas City Startup Village, again, is just one component of the startup and entrepreneur ecosystem here in Kansas City. I'm going to give you a little bit of history about the village, how it came to be, what it is, how it came to be, and kind of where we're taking it in the future. So to give you a little history, the village started in 2012. I guess if one were to give a one-liner elevator pitch, it would be that 3 properties came online with startup activity within half a block of one another, in the first neighborhood in the world to get Google Fiber without any planning. So there's a lot to digest there, but I think the most important piece is that there was never any planning or grand master plan for the village itself. Literally, it was just a lot of serendipity and kind of random occurrences that led to a lot of startup activity and entrepreneurs coming together. So yeah, the idea of the village was that I have a house here that I inherited in 2010. I just returned back from Boulder, where I was building my first startup, and just wanted to get someone in there. It's near a small commercial district, which is antiques and arts kind of community. And so I put a for rent sign, and there was one startup entrepreneur who was operating in the area. His name's Mike Farmer, CEO of Leap It, and he needed space. They just closed some funding, and they wanted to relocate their space. So saw my for rent sign, called me up. He had no idea I was a startup guy as well, so we agreed to get his team in there as well, or alone at the time. And at that point in my mind, I thought, that's what I'm going to do with this house. It'll be a startup house. And we knew Google Fiber was coming, but it was going to be at least a month or so before we got it. So I got him in there. A few days later, I went to startup. We needed office space. We agreed with Leap to take the basement of the house, and we brought another startup with us. And so all of a sudden, we had 3 startups in my house. Meanwhile, when Leap moved from across the street into my house, 3 other startups moved into that space. And then down the street, and again, this is all happening within a 2-week period, Ben Barrett, the local entrepreneur and web developer, came up with this harebrained idea of the Homes for Hackers program, which essentially just allows entrepreneurs from around the country or even around the world to come live in Kansas City for 3 months, free rent at a time, to get connected to Google Fiber and work on their startups and their tech projects. And he bought a house in the area. And so, again, 3 properties, all with startup activity coming together in a 2 weeks period. And that was how it all began. Very exciting times. And of course, as you can see, Google Fiber was at the center of it all, which made it extra special. Again, September 30th, 2012, Ben Barrett, the guy who started the Homes for Hackers program, sent an email to us, kind of the early settlers of the village, if you will, saying, hey, this is pretty cool what's happening here. We got Google Fiber, we have entrepreneurs and startups coming together. You know, this could be a neat national hotbed for startup activity. We should probably do something about it. We all agreed, and we came together and came up with the name of this Kansas City Startup Village, threw up a website, threw up a logo, and basically said, well, now what do we do? And in our mind, it was just to throw out the word and invite for other startups and entrepreneurs to come join us. And you have to remember that the village itself isn't a business entity by any means. It really represents a community. And as you'll learn about the number of spaces and buildings that we have, each one has its own story. The village doesn't own any of it. I have a house. There's other people who purchased houses. There's commercial spaces. Again, each one with their own story. So when we started this thing, we didn't really know what to do. We weren't seasoned community builders. Again, serendipity played its part. Brad Feld, I think probably many of you know him. If not, he's a renowned VC investor, entrepreneur himself, and literally a international thought leader on startups and startup communities. He had just written and released a book called Startup Communities when all of this village thing was happening. He has a close relation with the Kauffman Foundation, who often gives out books for free to entrepreneurs in the area. And we went to 1 Million Cups, which is a program that they host weekly. And they gave out this book, and we read it, and we thought, wow, this sounds kind of like what we're trying to do. So we essentially used Brad's book as kind of our guiding light and Bible, if you will, on how to build this community. And you can see there's 4 kind of guiding principles to what Brad believes is essential for a successful and vibrant startup community. I think the number 1 thing is that entrepreneurs really must lead it. So that's why the village, there's no president, there's no vice president, there's no hierarchy at all. We're all just co-leaders, and some do more than others, but at the same time, it's all inclusive, and anybody can do as little or as much as they want to do. And I highly encourage everyone to read that book if you have a chance, because it's really a great read. So again, we started the village in 2012 with 3 properties and about 5 startups. Fast forward to today, and we've got about 35 startups that call the village home, about 15 different properties that consider themselves part of the village. We've had 5, I think, startups graduate from the village, which is the ultimate goal, because the village can't handle startups of 30 or 40 people and growing. So it's almost a springboard into bigger and better things. If you go to our website, kcsd.org, you can see this map, and it's interactive, and you can zoom in and actually see the spaces and the startups where they're located. One of the things that makes the village so interesting, as many of you probably know, there's a Kansas City, Kansas, and a Kansas City, Missouri. The village is centered on State Line Road, which is just a 2-lane road. You wouldn't even know it's a major dissecting point between 2 states. But again, serendipity played its role, and this is really unique in that startups who want to be part of the village can be based in Missouri or Kansas and still be in close proximity to one another. There's been a long-standing kind of border war between Kansas and Missouri, where larger corporations will jump the state line to get tax incentives and whatnot. You can imagine the pull and push. But with the village, we're kind of a bi-state initiative, because we don't matter which side of the state line you're on, you're still just part of the community. So, here's just a little bit about what our goal is with the Startup Village. Again, we're an entrepreneur-led community, just helping to grow Kansas City's startup and entrepreneur ecosystem. We do so by providing an area of town where startups and entrepreneurs can base themselves. And I think the real power there is that it's, in a way, kind of like a living incubator. Incubator programs, as you probably are aware, take on a class of 10 to 12 startups maybe every 3 months or every once a year, whatever it is. And then they provide mentors and they provide resources to those companies in order to help them find success. The same thing, however, we do it in a different way where there's no cost, there's no time limit to join the village or leave the village, and the mentors are the entrepreneurs themselves, because at the end of the day, each entrepreneur knows a little bit of something that maybe the next entrepreneur doesn't. And so there's a lot of what we call collisions, collaboration, and connectedness, which is a kind of 3 C's coined by Tony Hsieh of Las Vegas and the Downtown Project. And that's really what the village is all about. And it's really exciting to see the serendipity and awesomeness that comes from all the community. This is an infographic we put together. It's severely outdated, but we just, as entrepreneurs, we don't always have the time to do the things that we want to do. We've got to build businesses. But you can see kind of generally some of the statistics. We've had quite a few investors come through to check out the companies. We've had political candidates and politicians all the way from senators, congressmen, mayors, governors come through and check it out. We've had VIP tours with CEOs of Fortune 50 and Fortune 500 companies. Lots of countries represented. We've had probably 78 countries come through now with foreign delegates. The U.S. State Department often contacts us to bring through groups from Iran or Russia or a collage of different countries because they're interested in entrepreneurship in this kind of unique play at a community. But yeah, and of course the press covered it. When we talk about Google Fiber, it's really awesome having broadband at the core of the village. Unfortunately, as it stands now, not a lot of the startups take full advantage of that from an innovative perspective. Now, from an operational perspective, it's awesome. You can get faster access to your servers or to your services or whatever. But for true innovation, we're still kind of waiting for some of the startups and entrepreneurs to really get savvy about how to use Google Fiber and push it to its limit. But Google Fiber, of course, people follow Google, anything they do. Kansas City, the first one to get Google Fiber. So it really cast a lightning rod of attention to the village, and because of that, we got a lot of press from it. So we've grown the village. We have a lot of tours, a lot of people come through. We host a lot of entrepreneurship panels for student groups, helping them better understand entrepreneurship as a viable career path. Back in the day, before we had what I'm about to tell you, the Village Square, we used to have to kick out one of the startups from their open space because they had the biggest space, and we needed to host 20 or 30 students or visitors to talk to them about entrepreneurship and whatnot. Thankfully, I won't give you the whole story, but the Village Square is a co-working studio and an event space that opened up in the heart of the village. And now we have an awesome space for entrepreneurs to base themselves, to work with one another. As you can see, it is a creative, interesting space. And we have an awesome event space where we can host those panels and those tourists. The Kansas City Startup Foundation is a 501c3 federally registered nonprofit. The reason for its existence was because the village, as we grew it, we didn't have as much support as we were hoping to get because it wasn't a true entity. It wasn't a business entity, and some of these corporations or individuals wanted to support it, but were they going to write a check to me? It didn't look so good. So we thought about converting the KCSV, Kansas City Startup Village, to a 501c3, but we thought we would lose that organic, grassroots, non-hierarchical nature of the village. So we created the Kansas City Startup Foundation as a nonprofit to not only support the village, but also other community building efforts for the startup and entrepreneur ecosystem. So you can check more about that online. Again, I think something that makes the village so interesting, and these are some of the challenges and hurdles that we face with the village, is that although there is a small commercial district at the heart of the village, it's completely surrounded by residential neighborhoods. And because of that, entrepreneurs and startups working and living out of houses, and sometimes only working there, we run into situations where there's zoning restrictions with the city, et cetera, et cetera. And so we've had to get really creative with the city and the residents to make sure that we're appropriately growing the village, we're not stepping on toes, and we're doing so, again, appropriately and diligently. So we're working with economic development councils on both sides of the state line. We're working with the neighborhood associations and the city and civic government officials to make sure that this thing really grows appropriately. And I don't know, I think maybe I'll probably utilize enough time, but that's it. If you need more information, you can check out our website or email us, and we're happy to answer more questions. So whoever's next. Oh, sorry.
Matthew, Cheryl Hills asked how many months do the entrepreneurs get free rent?
Yeah, I see that question now. So each property is unique or has its own rental agreements or leasing options. The space that I said was for free is the Homes for Hackers program. If you Google Homes for Hackers, you'll find their website. And Ben Bareth has a house in the village where he offers entrepreneurs who are building startups 3 months free rent to live in the house while they build their startups and hopefully end up basing their startup in Kansas City. But most of the entrepreneurs pay some sort of amount of money to operate in the village, whether it's in a house where they pay per month, to rent the whole house, or in the village square we have dedicated desks or drop-in space as well.
Well, thank you very much, Matthew. I guess we'll move on, and I think we're going to Fred next. Fred?
Hello. We're here this morning to talk a little bit about the Duluth makerspace. And I count myself pretty fortunate to have met Joe Durbin and his wife Miranda, who I happened across because I was having a conversation with my son and wife about what a makerspace was. And I thought I'd just jump online and look it up, and poof, there's a thing on the web about the Duluth makerspace, and I was a little taken back because I didn't even realize it existed. So I was fortunate enough, I came down, introduced myself to Joe and Miranda, and was lucky to meet some very passionate, charismatic people that have interests in the same. And I'll let Joe tell you a little bit about the space and then before we continue on.
Yeah, so I don't know. Makerspaces are popping up all around the country. You guys might have some in your own cities, but it's just a great collaborative space with tools and stuff to help you start a business or just pursue your own interests in art and whatever you might need. So it's a great way to get access to tools and stuff that individuals on their own couldn't otherwise afford or necessarily have the space and desire to buy things that wouldn't get used very often and what have you. So a great place for artists and stuff and engineers and
What I found really appealing about the Duluth Makerspace is the almost organic creativity in the air. When I come in, sometimes it's pretty quiet and you'll see one or two people working on something. And other times when you come in and there's a whole crowd of people huddled around someone's project that everybody is just saying, that is so cool. For example, last night there was a member here working on a LED lighted music activated display for his bicycle. And it was working a little bit like the moth to the flame. Everyone that came through the door was, what's that? Oh, that is so cool. And what makes the space so interesting is that I found people oftentimes have an interest in something, but there's just a roadblock. They might have a little fear of, well, I can't do that, or I'm not sure how to do that. So they never quite get over the hump of actually taking on a project or learning how to use a tool. For example, my own wife, I was surprised to find out, had never ran a wood lathe, and we were down here at this space, and we were running the lathe, and she says, "How do you do that?" And after a little explaining, next thing you know, she's pushing me out of the way, and she turned a couple of spindles we needed to fix a chair, and she was all excited about that. And I've been married for 20 years and never realized how much enjoyment my wife would get out of something like turning some spindles on a lathe. As Joe mentioned, there's a lot of tools in the space that may or may not be the tool that you'd find at home, but very interesting to use. Like, for example, they have a large variety of 3D printers, and 3D printers are often in the news for 3D print this, 3D print that, but the average person doesn't have access to them. They're not prohibitively expensive, but they're expensive enough a person who hasn't ever tried one may be afraid to do it. And you can print things like this vase that Joe's holding up. My favorite is the tooth. It's not one of his more favorite, but that's my favorite. We also have a member who decided they were going to create a 3D scanner. And here, let's show that. Hold that real close. He created. Oh, sorry, Chris. He created a 3D scanner out of a modified Xbox 360 Kinetic, and then he sat down in a chair and spun in a circle and 3D scanned himself and printed out a bust on the 3D printer. And he did the whole thing in a matter of a few minutes. That's one of the nice things about the space. Excuse me. They also have lasers, you know, and with the lasers, you can see on top of these two lasers, there's some projects that were done, and Joe has another one here, a little box. And the nice thing is, there's always somebody here to help people get over that hurdle of being a little afraid of the technology or how I do it. And they're a really friendly group and easy to work with. There's also big lasers. This particular laser has a 3-foot by 4-foot viewing or cutting port. Is that correct, Joe? And then jumping all over here. This is a robotics laboratory upstairs where you can work on quadricopters, RC planes, remote control cars, whatever an interest is. This is a metal shop we're putting together where you can do metal art or work on whatever metal project. Welding, where we have plans for a plasma CNC table for cutting. And speaking of CNC tables, this large object is a 8-foot by 10-foot platform computer-controlled cutting device. Many people might have access to a small CNC. A lot of people don't have access to CNCs at all. But frankly, I don't know anywhere you can find an 8-foot by 10-foot CNC.
It enables people to do a lot of things they wouldn't otherwise be able to do or envision, so it'll be a good toy.
One of the nice things here, and my wife and I have attended a couple classes here, is they often hold classes, and the classes are open to members and people who just want to come in and take a class. They're usually very reasonably priced. My wife and I attended a wire wrap jewelry class a few weeks back that I believe the cost of the class was like $15 each, and that covered the cost of all the materials, and when you finished, you took home what you made. And frankly, myself personally, I had always been interested in trying that because some of the things I have seen are really neat. However, it wasn't. I just couldn't get over the hump of, well, I'm not going to go buy all this stuff, and I don't even know what stuff I should buy, and how do I start, and this looks really hard. And I signed up for the class, and Miranda taught the class, and we came and sat down, and we were going to make it a tree of life. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'm going to make a tree of life. And about 45 minutes later, after a lot of fun was had by everybody, giggling, a little bit of joking, here I had this wire wrap jewelry tree of life that I was sure someone else had made and switched out for mine because it was far nicer than I had ever expected. So the classes help to start the creativity flowing because it takes away the fear that, well, I don't know what I'm doing or I don't know how. And then after that, we signed up for a class to do some acrylic clay modeling, which was a lot of fun. Where this ties in to broadband for me is, and I see people in this space doing it all the time, because one of the things that Joe has done is he's got wireless broadband that's open to the public here, is every time anybody talks about making something or doing something, they jump online, they look for pictures of it. Or how do I do this? They jump online and double the that they're doing it right. I have yet to be at the space when there wasn't someone saying to somebody else, well, hop on and look at how you do this, or jump on the internet and Google this. And like yesterday, there's a young man here who is making the rest of us men look terrible because he's putting all of this effort into hand making his girlfriend's engagement ring. And I'm just sitting there going, man, my wife's listening to this. I'm so losing points rapidly. And as he's talking about how he's doing it, he's doing a method called lost casting, where you make a mold and the mold's filled with wax, and then you pour hot metal into the mold, and then the wax melts away and leaves the item you want. And he's talking like he's an expert on this. I'm listening to him talk, and he's like, I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to do this. And I'm very captivated by listening to him, and I'm telling him, wow, that's really interesting to me, but I don't know that I would ever try that. And then he lets loose with the zinger of, well, I've never done any of this stuff before. I just looked it up on the internet. And yet here he is, he's 2/3 of the way through the process because he's down in a space, in an area with the tools and safety equipment and the help and the support of others to try this project he's never tried before. So it's an excellent space, both socially and creatively. There are many projects I've seen people working on where, as an individual, they may not have all of the knowledge to do it, but there's always somebody here to help out. Joe's kind of the resident space bumblebee. I see him flitting from spot to spot, from people with tools or setups or safety or materials.
Yeah, the collaboration is one of the best parts of a space like this, because you can get a great metal worker working with a great woodworker, and they'll make something better than either one could on their own. As far as all the fees, we're trying to get the space to be sustainable on its own. We may look into a nonprofit in the future. We just, as we barely have time to build a space, let alone do all the bookwork and all the legalese of chasing down that route. If we find that that'll work better, we'll do it. It's however we can make it sustainable the best way possible. So as it is right now, we're doing $25 a month for a membership, just because we're still starting to build into space. We've been at this for 6 months now, and we're maybe halfway to fully built out as we'd like it. So once we get to that point, we'll gauge membership based on raising the rates a little bit and stuff, and see, hopefully in the end, somewhere closer to $40 a month. And if we can get at least 50 members a month, that'd be great. But currently 25, and maybe we're hovering usually around 25 active members. So that's going to have to come up, but we don't have our wood shop yet, which is the biggest demand everyone has, is a good outfitted wood shop. So it's an easier entry point, less technology required, and easier to envision projects and such. So
what's currently offered in this space is a classroom, which we're sitting in now, where the classes are offered on a variety of subjects and interests. There is a robotics space to do work on robotics. There is a electronic and tech lab with lasers. There's the 3D printing area. Joe's about 30% through of the way, maybe 50% through the way of putting in a pottery area with kiln and all of the stuff required to throw pottery. The wood shop is probably 75% of the way along the way. The metal shop is probably 75% of the way good to go. There are plans. There has been some discussion about areas for blacksmithing, or possibly areas for brewing alcohol, or various other interests. One of the things that seems to be the most captivating about this area for me is all the decisions are made on a cooperative basis. The members get together and vote on, this is what we'd like to see in the space, or this is how we'd like to see the space arranged or working, or this is the next addition or purchase we'd like to make. To me, that's an excellent way to both encourage ownership and participation, and also ensure that a space is truly serving the community. I was once asked what I thought the most effective implementation of technology was. And my example was a number 2 pencil, because you can hand it to somebody, they don't need any instructions. It doesn't matter if they're 5 or 55, they just know exactly how to use it, it just works. The technology involved is just invisible. What is very pleasing to me as an individual who's very concerned with broadband connectivity in communities and availability is how the broadband connectivity in this space is present and utilized constantly, but almost invisible. They've got a new really cool printer that literally is right out of some sci-fi movie. It's a liquid, and as you tell it what to print, it pulls this item right out of the liquid. So it's pulling a solid modeled item right out of the liquid, and it's like, how is that possible? That particular printer is a wireless device that just connects up to the broadband network in the space, and you send commands to it. So they've done an excellent job of incorporating the tools that are from the past and tools that are from the future in a space with broadband, to where the point broadband has become critical yet invisible.
Additionally, sometimes 3D printers are neat, but they're not exactly quick. Like a print like this would probably have taken 2 or 3 hours. One of our members for his work built a custom filter system. It took exactly 25 hours to print. So we have web cameras set up along the different printers, and people can log in from home to watch the print, make sure it hasn't failed. A lot of times if something gets out of whack, the entire printer could start getting damaged, or the print just fail, and you don't want to wait 24 hours to see that that's happened. So a good easy way to check up on your progress.
So with that, I mean, I could go on for hours. I'm very passionate about the space here and the community, how it goes, but that's kind of in a nutshell and a quick version of what the Duluth Makerspace is, how it works, and what's available. Joe, you have anything else to say?
No, it's fun. It's the cool part is there's so much different stuff going on, and you're learning every day. No matter what you know, you don't know everything about everything, and when you have a place with everything, you can always learn.
So back to you, Mary or Ann, and we still can't hear you.
Can we hear you yet, Ann?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, oh, you're there.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! I snuggle up again, and I'm here again. So I will reverse engineer some introductions here. But first, I'll start, friend Joe, by telling you, Cheryl had a couple questions. She asked about the fee to use the equipment, the monthly fee, and I didn't hear you say the unusual thing about your monthly fee, which I wish my gym had. But it's not. Am I remembering correctly that it's not necessarily a month-to-month fee, but it's a fee when you want to use it?
That's correct. There's no yearly contract or anything. So a person could, if they chose to, come in and pay for 1 month's membership, use the facilities as they needed to for that month, and then not pay the month after that. Of course, we encourage people to be full-time members year-round, but if it suits them better or fits their schedule better or their finances better, they're certainly more than welcome to pay 1 month's membership and use the facilities during that.
That's it. Cheryl was also asking what kind of neighborhood the Makerspace is in.
Yeah, it's a light industrial / business area. So we're legal to make noise and a little bit of mess, and yet we're only 3 minutes from downtown Duluth. So it's a great location. It's a nice old 1920s building, 11,000 square feet. That's kind of segregated into really great different workshops. So it's got good fire safety, and we can do anything we want pretty much out here.
Nice. Finally, last question that I've seen so far is how do you attract the makers to the area, to the space?
We're still kind of working on finishing the space before we do a big outreach push, just because about 80% of the people say, well, let me know when the wood shop is fully done and usable, because that's my main interest. So once once people come in for that wood shop, you know, we'll have better luck showing them the other technology, and they can see how they can use that and expand their projects that way. But for the most part, we're in about a month we'll start doing more of a, you know, postings on the posters and boards everywhere we can find, and anything else we can come up with. We do some volunteering at schools and help out with robotics clubs and pretty much anything anyone can do.
They made a really cool infinity mirror for the Children's Museum that is very. They made it for the Children's Museum, and it was very attractive for kids to play with, to change the speed of the lights and what looks like the depth of this hole that goes forever. But I noticed an awful lot of adults, including myself, spending some time at it.
Great. Okay, I'm going to step back, and I apologize so much for my audio not working. Of course, it worked in the dress rehearsal. That's how that goes. So just to step back, I want to thank Matthew so much for his presentation. I did want to say I was sort of starting today with Matthew, and then with Fred and Joe, and then in a minute here with Carla, from the most aspirational to what I think is probably the most accessible ways to create creative places and creative spaces. I'm forever indebted to Matthew, who very kindly on a Sunday gave me a tour of the Kansas City startup area. There were 3 generations. It was my dad, my daughter, and myself went around. And if you get an opportunity to stop in Kansas City, it's absolutely fantastic. And I think that what the Kansas City and especially the makerspace really have in common is kind of that stone soup idea. For Google Fiber, maybe there's been a stone soup that got everybody together and talking a little bit in the startup village, but as Matthew spoke about, everybody has something to bring to the table, and everybody is kind of willing to bring that to the table at the same time, which I think is what really lends to sort of the creative space that it's become. I think the other important thing is that it's really led by entrepreneurs, which is fantastic, and I think it lends entrepreneurs know what entrepreneurs need. But I know from the community and economic development status perspective, it can be difficult to get some of those entrepreneurs in. So I think having people actually lead the effort. And I'll ask a question, Matthew, since I couldn't ask it before. What really got you inspired to do it? What do you think made you want to do it? Because I have my own business, and it's hard to find time to do things that aren't for clients.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like the universe works in mysterious ways, and it's certainly never, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if you'd asked me or told me you're going to be a community builder someday, I would have laughed you off and said, what are you talking about? I don't have any idea how to build a community or help build a community. And, it's the Kansas City Startup Village was something that presented itself to myself, to the other co-leaders. And, there's a few of us who just are so inspired about what the results and what it brings to the table for Kansas City overall, but just the entrepreneurs and the people who reside and live and work in the village, that it's a blessing. I mean, it's every day is different, and it's exciting, and it's just, this is what we love to breathe and live all the time. And so it adds fuel to our inner fire, if you will.
Nice. And a lot of people who are community and economic developers, can you think of a way that they would be able to reach out to entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs like you, but in Minnesota?
Sure. We've been actually, we've had a number of civic leaders from around the world come through the village, and one of the most common questions that we get is, how can we create a startup village in our community? And maybe someday we'll create a plan or our own kind of guidebook on how we did it, lessons learned, and how we would suggest others do the same. But quite honestly, I think the conversation starts with the entrepreneurs. Again, this doesn't happen if the city tries to build it. It doesn't happen if corporations try to build it, or if a nonprofit, or if a services, or if investors try to build it. You've got to find the people with the biggest stake in the game, and at the end of the day, that's the entrepreneurs, because one of the things you realize when you're an entrepreneur is that it's really, really, really tough. And so anything that you can do to aid yourself and others in finding better chances of success is something that you want to do. And so this startup village and other places, other communities in Kansas City, and of course other startup cities around the country, that's what it provides to those entrepreneurs. And so they're the ones who have the passion to lead it, to make sure it thrives, to make sure it's vibrant. So I would suggest the economic development councils of Minnesota, Duluth, or elsewhere, find those entrepreneurs. It doesn't take much to get them in the same room. Just say, here's a bunch of free beer and pizza. And then just gauge their interest and find out who the connectors are, who the ones that seem the most inspired about entrepreneurship or have the most tenacity, and then narrow in on them and say, hey, look, there's this thing in Kansas City. It's a startup village. We really like the idea. And then heck, we'll have them down for a tour. We're happy to show it to them, and maybe they'll get inspired to kind of do the same thing in their communities.
Great, that's fantastic. I think that's helpful, and I really would encourage this. Kansas City's not that far. Well, it's not that far from St. Paul. It's further from Duluth. Closer for probably, but for folks to go down, I think I just enjoyed it so much.
We're glad to have you.
So the questions I would have for Fred and Joe, I guess I have kind of the same question. And I just think makerspaces are fantastic. I think a lot of people listening probably not had the opportunity to live in Dublin for a number of years, and they have pop-up makerspaces around there. But I know some of the other Blandin and Broadband communities are looking at makerspaces and how to get some of that into their communities. What advice would you have for some of the other Blandin and Broadband communities in terms of how would you get this started? What's the real practical basis? Where would you start?
With us and a little web research I did, it's always finding that core group of people that are really interested, and you need to start with them, and even like setting up our shops and such. It's the most luck we've had is in finding people that have equipment just sitting lightly or unused, and if you can find that, that's zero cost, and from there you just need to find a location that'll work cost effectively. We decided to, in the interest of long-term sustainability, to actually buy a building. It's more upfront, but rather than a $60,000 a month rent, once we get it all built up, we will save that large chunk of change when you go with a big building. So as far as everything else, entrepreneurship and stuff, we've got some different offices in the building. We're hoping we've got one guy who's actually starting up a coffee business who is going to rent out one of those offices. And with a few offices in the same building with all the equipment, you can actually easily start up a nice little mini office and business and utilize the space for your operations lightly. So,
to me, I think that the key is first find that person that's passionate about the space. I know that Joe doesn't blow his own horn enough, nor does he take credit for the passion and creativity he inspires others. One of the things that works well, I think, and Joe does it almost charismatically without realizing it, is he's very easy to talk to, very easy to say, what do you need, Joe? Tell me what you need, and then we'll go find it somewhere. He's that leader, and that's what it takes. It takes a leader that can have the vision and the ability to not overwhelm everyone else with his opinion and his decisions, but have that cohesive vision to lead that space in the direction that leads to creativity and expansion.
and have lots and lots of free time.
I imagine it does. Well, thank you again. Thank you. I enjoyed hearing about the makerspace, and I will get to Duluth to see it soon before the snow falls. How's that? That'll be good.
Excellent.
And I'm happy then to introduce Carla Leiden, who I'm again, I think many of you know I'm a librarian, so I'm always excited to have another librarian get an opportunity to talk about what's happening. And I think that many of the Blandin broadband communities, but to me, the library is a central part for so much of what's happening. So without much more, Carla, I'm excited to have you share what's happening with the East Central Regional Library and how you're making creative spaces and creative places happen there.
Well, thank you, Anne. Yes, you can hear me. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, wonderful. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about libraries, and one of the things that struck me as you were having this last conversation where you talked about the stone soup kind of thing, if you know anything about history of libraries, you know that that's sort of how libraries came together too, many, many years ago now, but it was the sharing of resources, the pooling together and the sharing of resources. So we're obviously a much older institution, but we are still have always been about creativity and creative spaces and information. So as Anne said, I'm the Assistant Director at East Central Regional Library. Just a little bit about East Central Regional Library so you know where I'm coming from. We are a regional library system, as the name implies. There are actually 12 of them in the state of Minnesota. And we cover 6 counties just about 45 minutes north of the Twin Cities, Aiken, Chisago, Isanti, Kanabec, Mille Lacs, and Pine counties. In those 6 counties, we run 14 libraries and also outreach services to the more northern communities, the ones that just don't have either the population or the don't have a library at this point. So, and we are very rural. We have smaller communities from McGregor with about 400 people up to our biggest community would be North Branch of about 10,000. So we're not running in big towns like the Twin Cities. We are really serving rural Minnesota. And in that same regard, we operate on about a $3 million budget to run all 14 of those libraries. So you're going to see that some of the first things I talk about are low-cost creative spaces, and then I'll kind of talk a little bit more about what some of the more high-tech, if it should be, if I could say that, things that we're doing and other libraries are doing. Libraries, as I said, have kind of always been creative spaces. I think that we inspire creativity through resources and programs. Our traditional resources of books and DVDs and things like that. Lots of programs. You can see in there we have author visits and quilting programs have been had. But I think we're providing those inspiration for people to be creative. Also, we're providing space and opportunities for people to be creative with hands-on workshops and even just community space in smaller communities. Some of the things that we've done at ECRL, many of our branches have Lego clubs, for children, very low tech, but very, very popular. We still do traditional children's crafts, poetry nights, and poetry workshops, writers workshops. Up in the top right-hand corner there, you'll see one of my branches has kind of moved into a music jam kind of thing where one night, I think it's a month, she will just invite local musicians in to just kind of work together and jam together, offering up that space. It's been very popular in that small community. The other thing that you'll see in libraries across the state, as we focus on early literacy, are smart play spaces for children and to develop early literacy skills. I was just listening to the state librarian speak yesterday, and she mentioned that over 70 smart play places have been put into libraries across the state. And this is just an opportunity for children to really kind of be creative. But we've moved into some more of the high-tech things. This is one of my branches taking that Lego to the next level as a part of a STEM series, science, technology, engineering, and math. She had developed had a volunteer come in and teach a Lego robotics class to about 12 students. And they just had a wonderful time, and I understand it is very math intensive. If I had thought it was more about creating, and it is actually more about the skills there. So, and coming soon, actually, as part of a Blandin grant, we will be offering what we call technology petting zoos. This opportunity for people to see and try out devices before they might buy one themselves, to experiment with apps and recommended apps that we may have suggested from them, but also with the guidance of knowledgeable staff in the libraries, and just that opportunity to interact with those devices and try them out. Especially in my part of Minnesota, there's a great digital divide yet, and this is a way for us to help people have that first experience with technology. And just some of the other things that I've seen happening in libraries, the makerspaces is a big movement in libraries, not on the level of the Duluth makerspace by any means. I can't imagine a CNC machine fitting into one, but I have seen sewing machines and die cutting equipment, some 3D printers. Some places have done video production spaces, things like that, that really, again, foster that creativity. They are things that need that broadband access, and they're very exciting things going on. I've also seen some digital storytelling classes where people have a chance to come and put together a lot with immigrants, and put together and tell their stories, and an instructor helps them put that together in a digital story. And then history and preservation days. People have all these old photos and artifacts and things that they want to save and preserve. The Rochester Public Library did a scan day and offered people that opportunity to come in, and then what they do with that in terms of scrapbooking or whatever creative things that might come from that. And one of the other things that think that libraries are looking at is self-publishing tools. There are, literature-based things that help people write their stories and then also make those stories available to a greater audience through the library collection. Libraries across the state are providing a lot of digital resources that I think make communities more creative. We offer ebooks, e-audio, digital magazines. Some libraries are also doing streaming video. We offer a lot of online resources and databases so that you can look up some of those things. You're doing car repair, you can, from your home or from a makerspace, access like a children's database. Facebook and Twitter book clubs are an opportunity to create kind of a virtual community. And, as people become more, hours are different for different people. This is a way for, like a 10 o'clock book club in the evening, people to just interact. Throughout the state, there's a 24/7 chat service. It's called Ask Min, and it is an opportunity for you to get professional resource help, informational help from a professional librarian 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, and then also I think is an opportunity to really inspire some creativity. The Digital Public Library of America has over 10 million items from libraries, archives, and museums. And that's from across the country. And those, I've seen apps created from that. If anybody's seen the Historical Cats app, and you just, a different cat appears every day, and it's just kind of a fun way. But I would see a lot of app makers and things like that being able to use those items in the Digital Public Library of America. And just some advice about working with your library. I think a lot of communities in Minnesota have a library. Libraries are very accessible, as Ann mentioned, and just some advice about reaching out to your own library. As far as who should I talk to, and I really feel like that depends on your library, but I would look for the person who kind of does the programming, whether you want to work with adults or children, but talk to that person who does the programming, get their input, and sell yourself. If you can relate to the library's mission, that's a great way to sell yourself and what you want to do. Most libraries' mission includes things about educational, informational, and recreational needs of a community, and I think a lot of what's going on, in any of those type of situations fits that one of those areas. What's easy for libraries? Space. Many libraries have space, not all of them, but many have space that they're eager to share. I like to say we love to share, actually. We love to share resources, and we love to make partnerships with area organizations. We have technology. even where broadband can be an issue, most of us have high-speed internet, wireless access. Many of us have computer labs, so we do have that technology already built in. We also have staff expertise. We have generally very well-trained and skilled staff. They're not afraid of technology and are willing to help. And then, of course, if it happens to be literature related in some way, shape, or form, it's a very easy sell. And as far as what's tough, and this is probably tough of most things, money is tough, of course. I don't know any library that would say they are well funded. So, you know, keep that in mind about what is this going to cost, and then staff time, and that goes along with funding. So that's kind of my pitch for making sure you think about libraries as you're thinking about creative places and creative spaces in your community. So, and I will leave that at, whoops, if there's any questions, but there is my email address, and I'm more than happy if anybody wants to talk about their libraries. I do know the state of Minnesota pretty well and can help you get in touch with a local library if that's a desire of yours. So, back to you, Ann.
Great. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Didn't see an reaction. I thought, oh no, I've lost you again. I thought that was very interesting. I don't know if we're just about done with the hour. We've got a couple of minutes for questions if we have. I have to say, when you talk about the digital public library database, it would be interesting to have a hack fest all on how people could better use that, how people come up with some apps with some of that.
Sure.
But, yeah. So I don't, I'm being quiet to give other people a chance to ask questions. But I thank you all for coming on board and starting. I think some of the things that Carlos talked about here are things that people in the Blandin and Broadband communities you could walk into your library and implement some of them right away. Even just, I think, shining a light on what some of the things that you folks are already doing would help make sense. I mean, from that perspective, what would be helpful to the library? How could the economic developers, how could the entrepreneurs, how could other people in the community help the library either get the word out about some of these programming or volunteer to help do some of the training with the program? Is there anything that you could get from the rest?
I think that the challenge, that's a very good question. The challenge for the library tends to be the getting the word out about what resources that are available. So I think that is something that we struggle with in this day and age. There's some notion that anything you can want to find is online, and while that may be true that we actually access a lot of things online, not all of it is good qualitative or authoritative information. And so, I mean, librarians are here to help you find good things as well. Now, there's wonderful good things. I would definitely say we would show people YouTube videos, but sometimes you do need to find some better resources than what maybe you can find just by Googling something. But get the word out about what your library offers and talk to your library about what they offer, what they've already got going on.
Great.
Oh, I see another question for the...
Yes, and I probably will take this one question, and then it is 4 o'clock. So the question here, do the makers and village speakers think their model might be transferable to a rural mixed-use downtown setting? And we'll take that question and then sign off.
On our side, it's scale, so we're going kind of large scale because we have we're hoping to have the community to support that. You just have to scale it based on the community you have. You have to find the interested core and scale it upon that. And yeah, I mean, even if you only have 5 people in a rural area, if they're all sharing one garage, that garage is going to be better than any individual's garage, and in that way, it's still a makerspace.
Yeah, I mean, I answered the question in the text box, but I mean, again, for a startup village type scenario, you just need space for the entrepreneurs to work in, and it doesn't have to be the prettiest of spaces because entrepreneurs are used to garages and spare bedrooms and closets and stuff. And then entrepreneurs to lead it, and then some broadband, of course, because a lot of startups these days are tech-based and they need access to the internet.
All right, then. I think we'll wrap up today. Thanks again to Ann, Matthew, Aaron, Fred, Joe, and Carla for joining us on the webinar today. Our next webinar will be Thursday, August 13th. And the topic is advocacy groups. Who are they? Thanks, everyone, for attending, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.